Morning, everybody. Just a sound check for you. We will start in a few minutes' time, just admitting all the colleagues into the session. We will start as soon as possible. Thank you for joining.
Morning. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning, Harry.
Good morning. Just a sound check for those who recently joined. Good morning. Thank you for spending some time with us this morning. We're just busy admitting more people to the session, and we will start soonest. Well, good morning to everybody. Welcome at the session today. Just still admitting people, but while we're admitting our colleagues, we're going to start doing some housekeeping. My name is Harry. Those of you who don't know me yet, I'm the corporate spamming you every week, and thank you very much for having me in your inbox. It's greatly appreciated. Thank you very much. So a little bit housekeeping, ladies and gents. Please keep yourselves on mute. We will not encourage questions during presentations. We will do that during the questions and answer session at the end of the event. And then you can use the participants box at the bottom of your screen. You'll see there's a participants box. When you click there, you can see who's on the call, and you can mouse over your own name and rename yourself should your device name is showing or not your own name. You're most welcome to do that if you want to. And you can use the chat room to greet each other. You're welcome to share contact details. Please do not do a lot of marketing there. Keep the focus on the theme of today. But you're welcome to do networking in the chat room. Also, you can post questions in the chat room for the panelists during the event. The panelists usually have a look at the chat room, and they also answer your questions. So we really appreciate if you can make use of that. During the panel discussion at the end of the event, then we will give you opportunity to unmute. You will be recognized, and then you can also ask questions to the panelists. So that will be allowed. Ladies and gents, we proudly hosted today by Global Trade Solution, and I would like to share my screen if you have a look at our program for the day. And just get my screen sorted. So there's the first half of our program. Our host, Louise, he will do the official welcome in a few minutes' time. And there's the first half of our program. I'm not going to read through the program. You had to look at the program before, but we'll still go through the program later on. And there's the second half of the program. And obviously, ladies and gents, as you all know, that the events and the Transport Forum and related information on the web, all of that are complementary. So obviously, we've got valued sponsors that's making this possible for us, and we really appreciate that. And we would like to give some recognition to our sponsors, making the Transport Forum possible. And we obviously have formal associates with the Transport Forum, and we also have media alliances with the Transport Forum, which we are very proud of. So also what I want to mention is that we're going to do lots of prize winning today. So we're going to have lots of fun. We actually have 4 prizes. So 2 prizes will be this nice USB desk fan. And then Huawei just informed me this morning, they're also making prize sets available, 2 of them. So in total, we've got 4 prizes today. So what we're going to do is this morning is that we're going to take you quickly through our valued sponsors, which you see on the screen there. And then we're going to ask questions about our sponsors. So that's going to be lots of fun. And the person who answers a question correctly in the chat room, you will be the winner of that prize. And that prize will be couriered to you. Unfortunately, only be done for South African citizens. So that's going to be lots of fun this morning. So let's start then giving recognition to our alliances and sponsors. And what we do is, while we're doing this, we're obviously going quickly through them, but it's very important to do this. And I give each organization opportunity to interrupt me at the beginning and to say a few words. Otherwise, I will say a few words because they're not always available at all the events to say more about the organization. So these are the professional bodies that's in a formal alliance with the Transport Forum. Really proud in having them part of the Transport Forum. And so let's have a look at the South African Association of Freight Forwarders, established in 1921, and they're representing the freight forwarding industry, ladies and gents, accepted by the authorities as the leading industry voice, and it's consulted by them on matters influencing freight management. Very important organization you need to subscribe to or become a member of if you're not one already. The South African Express Parcel Association is the representative body of the voice of the express delivery industry in South Africa. The Express Parcel Association. Thank you very much for your alliance. We've got South African Bus Operators Association, representing the bus and coach industry. Thank you very much for your support. These organizations also host many of our meetings. They also obviously mentoring myself a lot in terms of what's happening in the industry and what topics we should entertain. We've got the African Rail Industry Association. They're very much working on the third-party access and trying to revive our country's railway network. Thank you very much, Ria. We've got the Chartered Institute of Logistics and Transport, established a section in South Africa known as SILSA since December 2002. And they are leading international professional body for everyone who works within the supply chain, logistics, and transport. Thank you, SILSA. There are formal media alliances of the Transport Forum. Obviously, there are many other alliances as well, but these are in a formal agreement or other media houses, giving the Transport Forum coverage. But these are in formal alliance with the Transport Forum. So we've got Freight News. Nobody from Freight News perhaps to say a few words. So they've been founded in 1953 by John Marsh and continues to be run as a family business by Dave, second generation, and Anton, third generation. Many years keeping us up to date with freight and logistics news. Please subscribe to these people so that you get up to date what's happening in the industry. We've got a Railways Africa magazine. So African content specialist trade, technical business to business online publication, covering all aspects of the rail sector. And we've got engineering news, real economy news, real time, premier source of real economy news, daily coverage of South African transport and automotive sectors, accurate and timely news reportage. Thank you very much, engineering news from Prima Media. And here is our platinum sponsor, C-Track. Maybe somebody from C-Track want to say a few words. It's the leading global software as a service and a big data company for vehicle tracking, fleet management, and insurance telematics solutions. And it's definitely making you always visible, your fleet. Very important in today's world to be visible. Our host for today, and I'm sure Louise will say a little bit more about Global Trade Solution, or Marcel, do you want to say a few words? Thinking on this stage, founded in 1999, delivers innovative technology and consulting services to the international trade and supply chain community. And it's a user-friendly, cloud-based international trade and supply chain solution that incorporates the core requirements to manage all activities around the international supply chain. So it's about seamless integration of the various entities in the international supply chain, including the statutory agencies such as customs authorities. Thank you, Global Trade Solution. I don't know if somebody from TicketPro want to say a few words here. Easy to use, the best of both. It's a one-stop shop for all your corporate travel bookings. All about traveler protector, allowing travelers to keep on top of their travel without having to worry about things. So your traveler preferences and loyalty numbers are obviously kept on the record so that it makes the booking process seamless for you. Business Guardian makes sure that your business is not losing money in the booking process. Cutting edge innovation with these people. So you can pay a visit to TicketProTravel.co.za. They say no hidden fees for straightforward fair pricing. It's an online booking tool for all your corporate needs. We also have TicketPro Smart Tab. The product of TicketPro is owned by JSE listed company Blue Label Telecoms, and it caters for all day-to-day operation requirements. It can accommodate any mass transit company regardless of their size. And it's an auto fare collection tailor-made for the South African commuter transport industry. Obviously, you can gain lots of information about these organizations on our website. And they're also new gold sponsors to the Transport Forum. Proud having them on board. JSE auditors, all of you want to say a few words? JSE auditors accredited Road Transport Management System and International Standards Organization certification. Very important your organization be compliant. And the Department of Transport Supply Chain Management of University of Johannesburg, been part of the Transport Forum since inception, actually, of the Transport Forum, also hosting 4 events per annum. And they are also mentoring myself a lot in terms of these events. Thank you very much, Eugene. Liz Co.
Good morning, Harry.
Good morning, Greta.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity. Well, right now we're focusing very heavily on helping companies to get their plans in place for the next year for training. And one of the tools that we use is our skills gap analysis tool, which really helps companies to identify where their skills gaps are, so that the plans that they put forward to the seaters are aligned to what the actual business needs are. So that's where our focus is right now at the moment. Thanks very much, and looking forward to the session today.
Thank you, Greta. Thank you for your support. The skills gap analysis seems very interesting. So definitely companies should make sure the use of that. Thank you very much, Greta. But Cargo is a leading cargo airline providing express airport-to-airport solutions and the related services to the courier and express logistics industry. Thank you, But Cargo. Sutari, Impact Engineer. So obviously consulting engineers of note, also many years ago sponsor of the Transport Forum. Thank you very much, Sutari, previously known as Oricon. Thank you very much. Ability, the human face of insurance, acting on behalf of mutual and federal risk financing. Also the co-host of our next meeting next week, the 24th. And this is the other co-host of the next meeting, Ingwe Risk Services, one of South Africa's largest independent brokers offering personal, business and specialized risk and insurance advisory services. Thank you, Ingwe. Unitrans, somebody from Unitrans perhaps. The transportation and logistics company that have been unlocking value in supply chains in various sectors of sub-Saharan economy since 1962, pride themselves in establishing strategic alliances with our clients by continually unlocking value through operational and SHEQ excellence. Thank you very much, Unitrans.
Yeah, I'm from Unitrans.
Standard Bank. Standard Bank involved with the Transport Forum also many years. Also, Cathy Dell also helping me a lot with planning of these events and so on. They over 158 years of experience. We believe that dreams matter and that together we can make them a reality. Thank you very much, Standard Bank, for your gold sponsorship. Cuba, transforming ticketing, part of the ICM Mobility Group, which enables public and private transport to move into the digital area. They're doing journey planning, smart ticketing, streamlining electronic payment, shaping the digital transformation of the mobility sector. Thank you very much, Cuba, for your gold sponsorship. Easyclear. Michael, a few words. Well, they're a leading software provider, they say, for the customs and clearing industry. So software solutions for customs clearing, freight forwarding, and logistics providers covering air, sea, road on rail. Thank you very much, Easyclear. Huawei, they're doing smarter transportation in a smarter world. They're also one of our presenters today. Thank you very much, Huawei. In an increasing globalized urban world, transportation is critical. Huawei technologies help design and implement smart infrastructure for transport from rail and urban rail networks to smart airports, promoting the increased use of ICT in the transportation industry. Huawei helps to optimize transportation services, making travel more convenient, safer, and more efficient. Thank you very much, Huawei. Ubunya Capital is a public transport knowledge hub, especially in the taxi industry. If you need advisory services, especially in the taxi industry, you should contact Ubunya. We see Majola. So they are our sponsors, ladies and gentlemen. Let's give our sponsors a big hand for making the Transport Forum possible. We really appreciate their support, the sponsors, media houses, and the associations. Just quickly, ladies and gents, a reminder of our business directory. It's been outsourced as a BE initiative to Olga Mashilo, Boleng Bonsle consultant. You can take a picture of this to get her number. She can help you to get listed. It's a very popular business directory. It's only 450 rands per year to be listed. And as you can see, it's well categorized. And you can look on our website. These people are getting many hits. So it's a very popular business directory. So contact Olga, and she help you to get listed on the Transport Forum's business directory. Presentations you see, we uploaded at the website, Transportseekcom, and you need to be logged in to access them. That's the deal. It is complimentary, but we need your information kindly. So you need to log in. To the left of your screen, you'll see this user login, and then should you not have an account yet, you can create your own complimentary account by selecting sign up. It will take you through a simple process to create your own username and password. Once you've done that, you can go to events and choose downloads. You get your search engine. By the title, you can type in any person's name, the presenter's name, or a date or a topic in lead search, and it will take you through all the more than 900 presentations presented at the Transport Forum over the past 15 years. By the way, this month is our birthday month. Transport Forum is 15 years of age. Or you can go to category, select today's date, and hit search, and it will bring up the presentations made available for today's event. So now we're going to get to this competition, ladies and gents, and we're going to ask questions, 4 of them. There are 4 prizes, 2 of these desk fans, and then 2 prize sets of Huawei made available by Huawei. Thank you very much, Huawei. So what you now should do is you should answer the question in the chat room, and the first person answering each question correctly will be the winner. And obviously, you can only win 1 prize. So once you've won a prize, then you can't answer the rest. But so I'm going to ask the question and keep an eye on the chat room, and let's see if we've got lucky winners here today. So the first question, here it goes. One of our gold sponsors is the host for today's event. Which organization is that? There we go. Thank you, Willie Kutsia. Willie Kutsia won that one. Just making a note here. Thank you, Willie. Congratulations. Right, the second question. One of our gold sponsors is providing online training courses and so on, and they're saying they're focusing very much now on the skills gaps analysis. Which organization is that? Thank you, Ashley. Ashley won that one. Bisco, very much so. Bisco, thank you very much, Ashley. Ashley Pauls, congratulations. Right, the third question Which organization is delivering smarter transportation in a smarter world that promotes the increased use of ICT in the transportation industry? It's an ICT organization, smarter transportation in a smarter world. There we go. Sumaya, Sheikh, congratulations, you won that one. And that's now for the bride kit. Just make a note here. And then the last prize, one of our gold sponsors is saying that they are a leading cargo airline. Who's that? They say a leading cargo airline. There we go, Leslie. Leslie Naidu. But the cargo, that's correct. So Leslie, congratulations. You also won a prize set. All right, ladies and gents, that was lots of fun. Thank you for taking part in our little fun. And thank you again to all our gold sponsors for making this possible. So now let me quickly go to our program for today. And I'll hand you over to Louise Bridget, our host for today, to do the official welcome. Thank you very much, Louise. Doesn't seem to me Louise is on yet. She will obviously be with us in a few seconds. So let's have some little bit more fun. I'm going to ask you another question. And let's dish out another prize here. Let's have some more fun while we wait. So let me just share the screen again. Okay, so there Louise is coming in, but while we're waiting for her to come in, one of our gold sponsors is a consulting engineering organization. Who are they? That's also for a desk fan. Consulting engineering organization. Who are they? Correct. Sumaya, you've already won a prize before. So let me ask another question, and then we give somebody else opportunity to answer. Okay, what commercial bank is supporting the Transport Forum? There's a commercial bank supporting the Transport Forum. There we go, Sizwe. You've been first. Congratulations, Sizwe. You've been the winner of that desk fan. So we will courier your prize to you. Congratulations. All right, so I'm quite sure Louise will be ready for us now. So ladies and gents, I hand you over then to Louise Widget, our host, to do the welcome. Thank you very much, Louise.
Morning, Harry and all colleagues on the call today. We're very privileged. We've got a distribution across the road. We've actually got partners from the WCO and from Belgium Customs joining us today from Brussels. A very warm welcome to them. We know that they're still dealing with winter, and we want to send some warm South African sunshine to them. It's really with great pleasure that we have you today here as part of our talk. And Harry, from our point of view, also a big thank you for all your assistance and support in keeping the Transport Forum so innovative and so full of great ideas and everything. And I really want to wish all the speakers and all the participants all the best for today. I hope you find the information informative. We've had to make some slight changes to our program due to unforeseen circumstances with some parties having to deal with family emergencies. But I hope you will still enjoy the program. Still very informative, and I really want to extend a thank you to our overseas participants also. We've got a very distinguished guest from the USA with us today. So enjoy the session. I hope you have found it informative and that the information shared can form the platform for some future more detailed engagements. Thank you very much, Harry, and over to you again.
Thank you, Louise. So proud being associated with Global Trade Solutions. And thank you for your kind support and mentorship to myself as well, and supporting this Transport Forum, making it possible. Thank you so much, Louise. Also, thanks to Marcel Ross for helping us putting this program together. Thank you very much. We much appreciate Global Trade Solutions. Thank you so much. All right, ladies and gents. So our first presenter then this morning, we're talking about the role of big data and cybersecurity in the future of customs and trade. 17th of March 2022 is Dan Garcia, and he's the director of SIMS. Dan Garcia is the director at SIMS Worldwide for the past 17 years. SIMS Worldwide is a global consultancy performing supply chain analysis and operational execution of information technology and logistics projects for a diverse customer base. Dan has 31 years experience in supply chain analysis and security management, and is an expert in APO from a commercial trade and customs perspective. Dan has an extensive background in security process design and administration, and has collaborated with US government, many global customs agencies, and various multinational companies. He has played an active role in the development of supply chain network and procedural security principles. Thank you very much, Dan. And Dan is going to talk to us about increasing security without sacrificing mobility in trade and customs flows. Thank you very much, Dan.
Good morning. Thank you for having me, and all the sponsors. Thank you for continuing to contribute to this great organization that promotes, sometimes it may seem that some topics are a little small or insignificant, and then they come around and bite us. Something as small as, for example, finding a chassis or finding a container, or even talking about supply chain nowadays has become a big deal. So thank you for that, Harry, and all your organization there. I'm going to share my screen for a second. We're going to talk a little bit about cybersecurity. Later on, unfortunately, due to one of our speakers' family situation, I'll be covering a broader topic that integrates some of these themes of cybersecurity with supply chain. And the one thing that I will say right from the beginning is that technology will always fail you. So if anything happens, believe me, I will go analog and I will get on this whiteboard with no shame. So anyway, let's get going. I want to talk about a little bit about cybersecurity, as it's literally the conduit for anything that we want to do nowadays. And our entire lives have changed because of cybersecurity. And it influences significantly every handoff that we do globally in international trade. So I'm going to go ahead and start a little bit here. And I think, Harry, you mentioned that we'll probably have a Q&A towards the end. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, very good. All right. So let's see here. Let me get this going here. All right. All right. So if it isn't enough that we have to worry about cybersecurity, none of the existing threats that we are used to, all of those threats are still part of our supply chain. So it's very difficult to wrap our head around the complexity of cybersecurity when at the same time we're having to worry about theft and smuggling, counterfeit goods, drug trafficking, human trafficking, terrorism, trade-based money laundering. These are all incessant themes that we still have to deal with. And knowing that there we go. Let me see if I can get to the next slide. There we go. Okay, so all these things still plague us. And at the same time, we have an entirely new landscape. In that landscape, we have obviously digitization happening everywhere. You can read that every border, every customs agency is quickly trying to digitize. And in COVID, we saw that digitization was a huge, robust component of keeping things going. Remote work became a normal. These Zoom teleconferences became normal. And they still don't replace human interaction and contact and what we could be doing together and interacting. However, they were a unique solution that was needed critically to keep things going. So today's landscape is very much digital. And some of the other themes that are very important are concepts like immutability of data. That is also being globally deployed. You see that, and you're going to hear about that more in Maastricht in October at the World Customs Organization IT conference. All the, for example, blockchain and AI and ML applications that are feverishly being developed in international trade to facilitate trade and hopefully also to promote security. Digital trade is also being used to create single window concepts to facilitate a one-stop shop at a border. All these multinational companies in all these vertical industries cross a border many times, and they cross numerous borders many times. Take pharmaceutical, take automotive, take telecom, take semiconductor. Those companies have raw material suppliers, work in progress suppliers, finished goods suppliers that cross borders many times before a product gets to market. So these single window concepts are very important to them. Then there's trade data models and data elements that must be defined. For example, the World Customs Organization has the data model. And with that data model, we're able to then mix and match data sets that eventually create declarations. And these declarations can be phytosanitary, customs, other OGAs, but making them digital gives us the ability to manipulate and analyze data much quicker. The other thing is, in the immutable world of secure ledger concepts, we can have what are called smart contracts. So all of a sudden, these bills of lading, these declarations, these phytosanitary certificates become almost immutable. We can see every change and audit that document in real time. So this digital landscape is happening very, very quickly, and we have to get used to this frenetic pace and the fact that it's not going away. However, we must be very, very vigilant and constant about what changes happen in security. So in security, there are techniques, tactics, and procedures that are being exploited by the bad guys, just like we see in the traditional world of the very first slide that I showed you. So in this world, there are common attacks. You're very familiar with spear phishing, probably, maybe even with credential harvesting, brute force passwords, where they use spray techniques to harvest passwords, especially passwords that are not very difficult to predict. And then there are KEVs, or known exploitable vulnerabilities for weak networks or computers that haven't been patched or networks that haven't been patched. Those are very, very basic, but believe me, those basics are the greatest hits for the bad guys to carry off the most prolific thefts of data and exploitations and disruptions in gas pipelines or in other places, okay? So these bad actors are taking advantage of the fact that we have simple passwords. How many of you have so many passwords that you end up putting a sticky note underneath your password, underneath your keyboard with your passwords, because there are just so many passwords that you have to remember? That happens a lot. And so simple passwords or unpatched systems and unsuspecting employees who have this confidence online, and they get hacked, and then the bad guys move laterally within the organization through their networks, is a constant. The other area that gets attacked is obviously persistent exfiltration and prioritization of attacks inside of environments like Microsoft 365, for example. So that's another area. And what it looks like is, in this world of active cyber threats, the bad guys are attacking enterprises that are in weapons and missile development, vehicle and aircraft development, software and technology development, data analytics firms, and one that I think is going to be the largest next disruptive force in the world. If we thought COVID was bad, I think the next major cyber disruption is going to be in supply chain, in the logistics world. I know of a very large multinational freight forwarder that was recently attacked, and their systems were down for days. And picture that. That's just one of many freight forwarders in the world. In a world of 800 million containers that are crossing the world, can you imagine a 4 or 5 or 7 day disruption? We saw that what a small disruption in the Suez Canal looked like, right? When we had a vessel stuck there. So imagine a cyber threat that disrupts global trade for 4 or 5 days. That is a distinct possibility if we don't up our game when it comes to cybersecurity. What do they exfiltrate data for? Well, they read our emails. They sit there passively and quietly in our systems, and they're looking at email communications, possibly stealing corporate secrets. They're stealing contact details, building maps of tangent between different people who are engaged in different communication. They look at product development to do IP theft. They look at what product is being tested, what product is going to be launched, maybe to have an advantage on the open market. They look at partnerships to see who's dealing with who, how can we exploit that, how can we disrupt that, and they look at who's funding who and where the funds are going. So all of these are active forms of targets and exfiltrated information that is happening in our day-to-day constantly. Okay, so cybersecurity, what is very, very important, and if you don't remember anything else from what I talk about on this subject matter, please remember this one slide, and that is, if you don't think it'll happen to you, you are so wrong. You need to be prepared for a cyber attack to happen to you. Just like a fire drill in a building, you have to do exercises, you have to alert people what that looks like, what the drill is going to contain, what are you going to do, and how are you going to go manual. We're digitizing all our borders, and my message to all 184 countries of the WCO is, when something happens and our digital systems are shut down, who are we going to prioritize to cross the border? How are we going to manage that? And who's going to do it? So if you don't think it's going to happen to you, it will. So don't think that way. Password protocols, as basic as that is, and I'll give you a little more detail on password protocols in a moment, but password protocols are essential. Use 18 character, 12 character, complex, alphanumeric with special symbol, and change them frequently. And there are ways that, across an entire network, this could be carried out, but train this into your employees. Deploy firewalls and other technology that'll help you have perimeter security. just like a fence would help, or just like a locked door would help. These mitigate these attacks and people from getting into our networks. And once they're in one of our networks, they might get into all of our networks if we're interconnected and dealing with each other. That's the problem that we have. That's the new paradigm that we have, is they're all interconnected. So we're all intervulnerable, if that's even a word. Attachments. Nowadays, malware, bots, keystroke mapping software, it comes through a very innocuous, lethal email. So make this top of mind to every single employee of what to click, what not to click. And it has to be ingrained in their day-to-day work and in their day-to-day ethic with the company systems. That one is probably one of the most dangerous ways that people get into our networks, is clicking an attachment, clicking a link. So test this on a regular basis and train to change the behavior inside every person's desktop. Secure devices in such a way that there's sensitive browsing going on. So, nowadays we can connect this way, we can connect via our pad, like our iPads or any kind of remote little computer. And that's normal nowadays. But the problem is, if we can get infected here, we can carry that onto the globe, onto the mass network. So we need to make sure that the use of VPNs, even on devices like this, are very important before they're connected. So authorization of authorized devices and using them in a secure way is critical. Another area is, let's say someone does get into our systems. How quickly can we reboot a historical instance of our entire network because we have an up-to-date backup, because we followed backup protocols, business continuity and disaster recovery, and we've exercised it and played with it on a regular basis, that it's muscle memory? How quickly can we do that based on geo-redundant backup protocols? That's critical, because many companies and many more are going to be the targets of ransomware, and their data is going to be hijacked and they are not going to have access to it. So how quickly, if we're a border, are we going to be able to exercise that muscle and get things going immediately? There are tons of vehicles for malware, and the malware keeps getting more creative. We've heard of the SolarWinds attacks. We've heard of Active Directory attacks, and that is going to be constant, and they're going to get more creative. So, if someone is able to exploit, let's say, our metadata on our cell phones, and then they're able to build creative algorithms that trigger things that are familiar to us, we're going to be more apt to click on them. So we have to not have a false faith that some familiar brand or some familiar instance is okay to click on. Then there's social engineering. Social engineering is a powerful way for the bad guys to attack us. It's so attractive to click on something that is, like I mentioned, familiar, and then we're exploited. And so we have all these different, vehicles, Instagram, Facebook, and all these other social media applications that we use in our day-to-day lives, but they're not always 100% in our favor when it comes to cybersecurity. So you should instigate policies across your entire network and with all your employees on what to look out for with all the new cybersecurity threats that come from social engineering. The last point that I want to leave you with, and the 10th, probably the most critical one, is train all your personnel, test them about your level of vulnerability to known threats, and make top of mind awareness a priority across your company. That is the most sophisticated line of any cybersecurity defense that you will have across any network. So these are the top 10 for you going forward. Now, when it comes to risk management, be it cyber, be it financial, or be it material flow in the supply chain, the bad guys, they have motivation to get into our networks. So the networks, oh, sorry, hang on. Talk about data. That was Siri about to play music. Oh my gosh. So I am so sorry. Hey Siri, stop music. Interconnected world. So my system just kicked off. I said something with an AI algorithm, and my music system kicked on, disrupted this entire presentation. That is a microcosm example of what can be done with powerful tools that we're all playing with globally in trade, AI, ML, and we're injecting them into our day-to-day lives. A minor example like that, picture a bad guy taking over through an innocuous system like Internet of Things and then injecting it into our supply chain. They have every opportunity, they have every ability, they have every intent of getting into our networks. So we must know what are the known threats that we need to protect ourselves against. We then need to know how well do we stand up internally against those external threats, and what is the potential consequence? What is the potential consequence of your enterprise or your border being shut down for X number of hours or days? That AI that kicked in with a simple command is as easy. It could have been done with a keystroke had my network been hacked. And I just disrupted us for 2 minutes. This is a real world scenario. So what are the vulnerabilities? The vulnerabilities that we need to ensure that we are protected against, and what we can do about them is, number one, as I mentioned, increase awareness. All these wonderful, powerful tools that make our life rich, using verbal commands, being able to dictate, being able to translate things online. All those powerful tools, they are exploitable. So make people aware in your organization. Out of all the 11 threat areas that all 97 programs, AEO programs around the world, or any security protocols around the world, the most important is access control. Access control is the most important because if we can filter access, segregate access, control access, we can mitigate risk. It is the first line of defense. So keep that in mind. A vulnerability for all of us is having this passive approach to security. We need to have an active approach to security, not wait to be a victim. We have to assume we're going to be a victim. We have to have people in our organization that are ethically trying to hack us, doing vulnerability testing. And that's true even of the financial and the material world as well. So active methods of attack, so known exploitable vulnerabilities that I mentioned earlier, be familiar with them, test your systems against them, quiz your personnel, try and always raise the bar. This will mitigate our vulnerabilities to the active threats. I already mentioned vulnerability testing. There are organizations that you can hire that all they do is test your networks. All they do is try and get into an employee via a malware phishing scheme. These are very, very important. Take them seriously. Secure data sharing. If you're going to share data, there are tools, there are methods that you can use to ensure end-to-end encryption, or using virtual private networks. Even when you're using one of these nowadays, you can have a virtual private network and tunnel in and out. Please use them. Once the virus or the malware is on here and you go onto an active network, it's too late. post-incident analysis, be it in the material world or the cyber world, make sure you have a dedicated team that will do that so that you can improve security the next time around. Don't wait for an incident to happen to then take all this corrective behavior. That is a very high consequence and a high cost to pay to learn a lesson. Then analytics. Use analytics. Are people querying more than often? Are people accessing files more than normal? Those metrics inside of a network are important, and your systems people should be looking at anomalous behavior that spikes. In the material world, I'll give you an example of that as well. If I'm looking at a container and all of a sudden I see a spike in queries about a container that has a commodity that is insignificant. Let's say it's coal or it's grain, but someone is highly interested and they keep pinging a website for that information. And I see that the pinging keeps coming over and over and over. There must be obviously something very important inside that container that somebody is querying that container over and over. That should spark interest in me. And it would be the same thing in the cyber world in a network. And let me just, and technology will fail you. I keep having problems here with technology and going on to the next slide, but let me just go like this, and because I have drilled it a million times, I have active recovery. So now I mentioned passwords a second ago, okay? Passwords and authentication are an ecosystem, a powerful access control ecosystem that you have to perfect. What is a password? A password is just one element of an access control system, and they should be complex and they should be regularly changed. A password is what you know, right? But there are other layers of access control that we can implement. Many of you may be familiar with them. For example, what you have may complement what you know and raise your level of access control. A token, for example, right? Some of you have seen those digital tokens where the random password changes on a regular basis, okay? Who you are might complement what you know and what you have. For example, a fingerprint or a retina scan or a facial scan. Another layer of authentication is where are you or where have you been? A geolocation, right? Maybe you're supposed to be in a specific area and you're not, and it sends out an alert. So a geolocation anomaly. What is your net presence? Is it in an authorized area, an authorized IP address, for example? And in addition, you can have what's called multi-factor authentication. So authentication is more than just a password. You can have other layers to mitigate access control penetration. Talking about mitigation, it's important to consider various things. And these are just a few of many things that are going on right now. Some areas that you want to try and mitigate. What's that?
2 minutes late.
Okay, yeah, no problem. So I'm not going to go into every single one of these, but protective controls in architecture, this is very important to make sure you have the ability to control email attachments and downloadable things. Access control, I already mentioned, very important to have authorized users that have access to only what they need. Phishing protection, very important to have active patches, virus protection, and mitigate any kind of phishing schemes. Configuration management, how your networks are configured and what's installed, who can install them, and how they're prioritized is equally important. And there are a whole host of other things that you can do to mitigate cybersecurity threats. So are you the single point of failure or a piece of technology, a single point of failure in your network? Make sure that you have redundancy in your network to mitigate that. Now, I'll leave you with 10 things that are most important for CIOs right now. Cybersecurity and risk management is number 1. Digital government and digital services is number 2. Connectivity in a broad and accessible way is number 3. Cloud services is exploding. Modernizing old legacy systems is number 5. Identity and access management is number 6. Preparing the workforce for all of this new environment, new skill set is number 7. Enterprise and architecture changes, number 8. Data information management is number 9. And consolidating and optimizing all of these ecosystems is number 10. So those areas are helping us to really make a change. Now, how do I know that you all can make these changes, these paradigm shift changes? We've done it already. We did it. We took risks seriously when we had to. We affected behavior change in short time. We realized an immediacy, even though we've never done it before. We're doing Zoom calls now. We're doing Teams calls. All of these things we've been able to do, and we did it with COVID. So make sure it's urgent, make sure it's serious, and you will affect change in this ecosystem very, very quickly. Thank you, Harry.
Thank you so much, Dan. I suppose it's about 4 o'clock in the morning now on your side. So thank you very much for your sleepless night.
No worries.
No, when we started, it must have been 3 o'clock. So I don't want to imagine what time you had to get up. But definitely digitization is happening to us nowadays, and we can't ignore that. And we have to keep in mind there are bad actors in this world. And people like yourselves are protecting us to these people. So that one slide you said we have to have a look at, we definitely are quite sure a lot of people are going to revisit that slide of yours and all the excellent advice you're giving us. Thank you so much for your time and your wisdom shared with us. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
I'll see you a bit later on then. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Right, ladies and gents, I would like to introduce you to our next presenter, Mr. Patrick Giang. He's been working at the World Customs Organization, or WCO, for the past 9 years. He's currently the program manager for the CEDA World Customs Organization Trade Facilitation and Customs Modernization Program, which is delivering trade facilitation implementation support to selected WCO member countries in the EAC and SADC regions. Prior to the assumption of his current position in February 2021, he had served as a technical attaché in the Capacity Building Directorate responsible as WCO Regional Development Manager, Capacity Building in East and Southern Africa from 2015. Dedicated to the coordination and delivery of strategic support to 24 customs administrations in the ESA region and the regional office for capacity building. So he's also contributed to the development of WCO integrity development tools, including the WCO Guide to Corruption Risk Mapping and WCO Guide to Preventing Procurement Corruption in Customs, which were published in 2015. Before joining the WCO Secretariat in 2013, he worked with the Ghana Revenue Authority, where he acquired vast experience in the field of customs operations, research, policy and programs, and international relations. Thank you very much, Patrick. So Patrick is going to talk to us about opportunities for customs authorities and trade within information sharing and cross-border trade. Thank you very much, Patrick.
Thank you, Harry, and good morning to you all.
Good morning, Patrick.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm really excited to be part of this conversation, this forum. So thank you very much to Louise Widget for the warm welcome. I also want to acknowledge the coordination that Marcel has played behind the scenes to get me here as well. I think that this program and the topic that has been assigned for the WCO to really speak on resonates very well with the current theme that the WCO has set out for the year 2022. I know that you might all be aware that in January, the WCO marked the International Customs Day celebration with a theme that talks about scaling up customs digital transformation by embracing a data culture and building a data ecosystem. In the Secretary General's remarks, he actually emphasized that the WCO and the customs community in that regard will be focusing on how to operate in a fully digital environment and creating an operating model that captures and exploits exploits data from across the trade ecosystem. So essentially what the WCO has set out to do is to take this ambitious step into an arena where we have already been, working. The digital technology has evolved rapidly, and the business community has leveraged the digital transformation to make your operations very efficient. So customs, in that matter, should also respond to the demand and ensure that we operate with facilitation and security, bearing in mind that it is time for us also to move into the area of digital transformation. Customs has data, receives a lot of data, generates a lot of data, big data, but the real challenge is how to utilize this data. And for that matter, the WCO always brings guidance and leadership. And this is how the International Customs Day, the team, is linked to. To be able to do this effectively, then, it is very important that the customs and tax administrations will create that enabling environment and actions, which will establish some form of formal data governance, use standards that have been developed by the WCO and other institutions regarding data format and data exchange. It is also important to ensure that there's appropriate management of data at right access to the right people, the right information, and so forth. But also, more importantly, adopting very progressive approaches now to bring innovation into an area of customs that traditionally may not be, the focus. For that matter, the WCO has actually listened to the emerging issues and has also set out to undertake a WCO data strategy. If you allow me, I'll just share this strategy and maybe just highlight a few issues on that. Thank you. So,
Thank you, it's visible. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, so the WCO data strategy rests on 3 pillars, and it looks like as sharing data, creating the communities of data practitioners, experts, and also assisting members in the transition to the data technology as well. Now, listening to the membership, there was this overwhelming understanding that the future focus of customs should be on digitalization and data. In that regard, the WCO looking at the fact that customs is expected to play a very high policy advisory role that should be based on evidence-based analysis for decision making, takes the first pillar, sharing data, very critically as one area where we need to standardize even the manner in which customs statistics should be made available. And also ensuring that there's open access to customs regulations, providing qualitative data online to trade and everyone. We also have our secure networks. There's a customs enforcement network where this will also be considered for, secure encrypted intelligence sharing. There's also the open source portal, which essentially provides a lot of information on security issues as well. And also ensuring that there's confidence in the use of this data by anonymizing the data. This is a very critical area where anytime we talk about exchange of information and legislation from countries become a critical matter for discussion. So anonymity is very, very critical. Now, in order to be very well endowed in using data as well, we need a community of experts. And so the WCO also is going to look at having the development of experts in data techniques, in policy, as well as creating that environment where there will be interactions and cooperation with especially trade that has the capacity to innovate. So creating an innovation hub as well. But then how does the customs community also transition into the area of data culture? The WCO has the capacity building framework on data analytics. This is a document that will provide guidance to members and for the successful transition. We have always developed standards and keep updating these standards in order to ensure that both customs and trade are utilizing this. And it also always comes with the involvement of stakeholders from trade as well. So this is very critical. It's important to train customs leaders on providing evidence-based policy making in that regard. Data transition pilot projects will be established. Customs statistics reinforcement. There should be support of customs statistics services with a lot of data science tools as well. The development of specialists is also very important as well. And within the WCO Secretariat itself, ensuring that there's enough capacity to really undertake this. So I will make this available to you, Harry, later on. Sorry, this is the only presentation that I'm sharing, but I'm hoping that from here I will be able to have a clear discussion on issues that relate to opportunities for for both customs and trade as well. If I think you all bear with me also that the WCO's work is not new in this area. So it's important to recall the ongoing work that has provided the collaborative platform between customs and trade in order to establish the kind of opportunities that already exist. I believe that the WCO's work to promote technology-driven customs has already enabled that some collaboration with members from trade, and particularly we can look at areas of digitalization, customs adaptation to disruptive technology, e-commerce, and generally how the WCO has established a good customs to business partnership to provide that enabling, environment for good partnerships as well. And then we can also look at the WCO's capacity building program itself and how it is intended to be used as a vehicle to run this. So if we take digitalization, we can talk about the supply chain digitalization, and it is very critical for the free and smooth flow of goods. Particularly, it is important to eliminate significant practical, economic, and even security issues in order to obtain and lodge physical documents that make it difficult for traders to trade internationally. This also will enable some automated processing for control and risk management, using, of course, advanced information as well. So the WCO has developed a number of instruments and tools to take care of this area. And I can recall that we can look at the paperless customs procedures, advanced electronic data. We can also talk about a pre-arrival processing and simplified customs procedures. Creating a single window environment, which Dan has already, mentioned. Having an interconnectivity of IT customs IT systems. Establishing electronic payment systems, as well as the use of non-intrusive inspection tools as well. So all these tools provide opportunities for real enabling actions through building a good data-driven culture, and then building a trade ecosystem. Paperless procedures, for example, should enable rely on an enabling legislation in order for customs procedures to move without the necessary requirements of physical documents and so forth. The submission of electronic data, advanced electronic data, will help a lot in the area of effective risk management. And this is something that must be provided by all parties in trade as well. We also have the pre-arrival processing, as I mentioned, and the simplified customs procedures that also rely on advanced electronic information to really ensure advanced processing of consignments. So, and then the single window environment standards also provide the opportunity for business to government data processing, as well as government-to-government data sharing. It has also enabled some specific interagency digital collaborations, especially between customs and postal cooperation, as well as customs and maritime cooperation. If we take the area of interconnectivity, the exchange of information between customs administrations based on the data model seeks to really move customs towards achieving a globally networked customs. This helps in the area of transit interconnectivity becoming very transparent, There's traceability, there's visibility, and predictability all throughout the transit corridor. It also has enabled customs administrations to reuse, for example, export declaration data for import purposes as well. And also it has supported the effective implementation of mutual recognition arrangements for the authorized economic operator scheme as well, sorry. E-payments definitely offer options for revenue collection, and it is an area where you begin to see a lot of customs administrations, especially in the developing countries where revenue is very critical. There's a lot of investment in this area as well. And it is also highly recommended that customs administrations use non-intrusive inspection methods. And probably this should be, as much as possible, be run by the customs administrations themselves. In the area of disruptive technologies, the WCO has already adopted a study report in June 2019, and this focused on 7 technologies: blockchain, Internet of Things, artificial intelligence and machine learning, biometrics, drones, virtual reality, and 3D printing. And the report really looked at what each technology is about and how they are used in general. But more critically, they also explored the use of these customs and border this in the customs and border management environment, and the kind of risks and the benefits that will accrue to using these. The report highlighted 3 groups of technologies: blockchain, Internet of Things and big data analytics, as well as artificial intelligence and machine learning. That these are areas that are actually impacting the work of customs and has future promise in the work that customs is doing to support facilitation and security of cross-border trade. Cybersecurity technologies, as Dan has mentioned, and I don't intend to go too deep into this area. He's explained things very well, but they are crucial when designing and procuring and implementing smart customs operations at the borders. And I think that there's a lot that has been shared in the previous presentation to make it very critical area to focus on as well. And this really covers, as it says, it needs to have an end-to-end, verification as to who and which devices are being, utilized in that environment as well. In the area of e-commerce, the WCO has developed the cross-border e-commerce framework of standards, and which includes relevant guidelines and recommendations for implementation. And this addresses all the needs of e-commerce stakeholders, consumers, and customs and other relevant government agencies as well.
Actually, 2 minutes left.
Thank you. The key thing lies in using paperless customs procedures for this as well. But what really is the key is the partnerships that has supported the WCO's work and has enabled us to feature a lot of critical issues in addressing all the concerns that matter to the business community. And here I just want to know that the work of the WCO Private Sector Consultative Group has been very critical. And for example, this forum provides an extension to this kind of collaboration. The most critical part is the WSU's capacity building program itself, which delivers support. And it's a vehicle through which we should be able to explore all the opportunities to bring the real fruits to bear. Traditionally, you see that the WSU's support touches on soft technical assistance and organizational development in order to bring about change. What is perhaps very important, and what the current call is to look beyond these traditions and then see how best the WSU's capacity building approach can go a little bit beyond the boundaries. Specifically, we have projects that are providing with donor-funded support and are providing assistance to customs administrations. And it is important to look at the formulation of the agreement itself right from the word go to ensure that it has covered enough scope to allow some level of partnership even with trade, because trade has the capacity and scope to really bring about the kind of change that is needed in this current digital, transformation that is required. Just allow me to touch on the CEDA program itself that is currently looking at a number of countries, 10 countries in the East African community, and then the SADC community region. For example, the CEDA program is supporting SADC countries in the area of customs systems, interconnectivity, and data exchange. And we are looking at a number of bilateral arrangements, as well as working with the SADC Secretariat to advance or develop a regional framework for customs and data exchange. The East African community is also looking at harmonizing the data exchange within a single customs territory. And this is an area where the CEDA program is also very highly considering to partner with. There's also the implementation of their automated regional AEO program, which the CEDA program is very well supporting in that area. We also have at the national level some critical requests for using export data for import purposes, and what we can talk them as a trader connect solutions. This is a very critical area that the program has prioritized and is looking forward to providing support. This is an area where it really takes other private sector involvement to achieve. And last but not the least, the WSU's CLICK program that provides e-learning training and learning and development for countries is considering looking at a new operating model where the CLICK could be integrated with the Customs Administration's national learning and development management system in a digital environment in order to allow the Customs Administration to utilize the CLICK environment to operate the entirety of its national training strategy. This is a paradigm shift that the program is really looking to support. And what it means is that it brings at the user end, the Customs Administration's own need to also liaise more with the private sector to achieve this. Sorry for taking too much of your time, but I thank you very much for this opportunity, and I hope that I was able to, bring about some clear areas where we could find opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Patrick. It's so important the work you guys are doing and making life easier for the international traders. You know, indeed, the data-driven community are also supporting, and we really appreciate what you guys are doing. And I'm quite sure they're looking forward to engage with you during the panel discussion. Thank you so much, Patrick. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies and gents. Our next presenter then is Jonathan Jet. He's in a national and international coordinator for the Risk Management Department of Belgium Customs since 2017. He's the project coordinator for Belgium Customs in a number of European innovation and research projects, such as Profile, a customs data and analytics project, and 10CP, customs networking and innovation project. At the national level, he actively participated in the development of new selection engine for Belgium Customs, CEDA 2.0. Before that, he worked as a targeting officer for the Liège Airport from 2013 to 2016, allowing him to build operational and strategic knowledge in the field of targeting, e-commerce, and express couriers. Jonathan is going to talk to us about Africa's data opportunity, how to integrate data and data analytics in customs processes. Thank you very much, Jonathan.
Yes, thank you. I'll try to share my screen. Okay, can you see it full screen?
Excellent, thank you.
Okay, good. So hello and good morning to all of you. First and foremost, I'd like to thank the organizers for the opportunity. I'm really glad to be here today with you. I work for the Risk Management Department of Belgian Customs as a project coordinator, and together with my data science colleagues, we've been working on data analytics related projects like Profiles for the last few years. Over the course of our internal developments, as well as the Profile research project, we were confronted with the challenge of evaluating data analytics experiments and results in a way that made sense in a customs context. And so over the last 18 months or so, we've worked on an analysis framework, also discussed this with other data scientists and customs practitioners in order to adjust it. And we gave a presentation about it at the WCO PCAR conference. And based on that, Marcel thought that might be relevant on today's agenda, more specifically on the topic of Africa's data opportunity. So this is a tool that was primarily designed with customs and data analytics in mind, but it's a generic tool, and I think it can bring value in today's specific context. So to start off, let me give you a bit of context about where I come from, our administration, and how data analytics is currently embedded in our risk management process. Sorry. We started recruiting data scientists to work on customs data about 10 years ago. And we've always had the approach that even though they have very specific profiles, they also need to be trained customs officer in order to have a good understanding of the environment and to be complementary to the traditional risk analysis. Data science is currently used in 3 different ways by 3 different sub-teams. First, we have an analysis team that focuses on querying, producing statistics and reports, some simple and generic data analysis tasks in order to support the risk analyst. Then most of our specialized data scientists work in the data mining team, working on quite complex and advanced analytics and doing predictive modeling on specific teams. And finally, we recently created an AI team that will develop expertise on emerging and disruptive technologies, and more specifically in the analysis of scanning images and other signals. Besides that, we are also, of course, wrapping up the Profile project, where we worked on machine learning models for risk detection with some other customs administration, as well as academia and other technical partners. And as you can see, although these are fairly different use cases, they are all related to data and data analytics. And so for us, the question was, how can we find a way to compare the quality and effectiveness of the work produced in the different use cases? Now, I can tell you that I'm not very familiar with the Southern African environment with regards to customs. I know of the Southern African Customs Union and their missions, which are relatively similar to ours in Europe. However, keep in mind, context matters. And however generic the message of today's presentation, and there are certain caveats depending on the context of your organization and the current IT situation of your organization. So now that it's cleared up, why do we speak here of a data opportunity? Well, we live in an incredible era where technology and data are becoming more and more available and reliable, while the costs are mostly going down. And essentially, we've come to a situation where a customs authority, which had very limited IT developments until today, can potentially leapfrog more experienced and established authorities by investing in the right tools and the right resources. Technology and data have been developing so fast that legacy systems are quickly becoming quite obsolete. For example, legislations and systems that were defined 10 years ago were not taking anything related to e-commerce into account, which is now massive and a huge challenge for customs. And so the previous presentations already gave details about the type of opportunities that you can have with data, but let me give you an example of opportunity when it comes to data and data analytics based on the work of my colleagues from the PenCP projects. There are now a lot of different sources and services providing additional data beyond the customs declarations. Oftentimes, the data is either open source or can be obtained at minimal cost. I'm not here to tell you which one is better than the other. That depends entirely on your situation, but many types of services are available, ranging from logistics and supply chain data, movement tracking services, company information providers, dashboard for decision support, and so on and so on. And all these can have benefits in a series of use cases. Here I listed those that can be relevant, for example, in a risk management context. But you can have many more than that. And this is just a snapshot on external data. There are many other opportunities in terms of system architecture, in terms of AI, in terms of IoT, in terms of blockchain, and others. But the goal of today's talk is not to list all of these technologies, but rather to make you reflect on what would make the most sense in your situation and to understand where the limitations would be. Indeed, we all have limited resources. We can't just integrate everything in our systems, and we must make choices. So these choices can be difficult because you rarely have perfect information on the situation and the tool. You often have to rely on performance claims from the providers that are difficult to relate to real life situations, but also oftentimes people have unrealistic expectations with regards to what technology can deliver. And as I mentioned a couple of times already, context matters, and sometimes that might something that might be useful for your neighbor might be completely useless for you. Finally, every opportunity comes at a cost. In the broad sense of the word, you might have to recruit specialists, supporting personnel, to reorganize your services in order to use a new technology. It almost never is plug and play when it comes to data and technology. In essence, you must be able to have a better view of the situation, the opportunities and the limitation in order to make a good decision. And that's why we came up with this framework that we detail a little bit later in the presentation. Don't worry. But first, let's try to give some practical sense to the challenges we face when we want to make some decisions in the customs risk management context. So no mathematics here or complicated concepts. We only want to answer the very simple questions. Which declarations do we select for control? To answer this question, there is only two important factors to keep in mind. First is that the large majority of the declaration are truly legitimate. The second is that the number of controls we can perform must be very limited. So we have a new declaration coming in, and we have to take the decision whether we select it or not. Our decision can lead to four possible outcomes: two correct and two bad ones. Depending on both the status of the declaration, legitimate or irregular, and the decision whether the declaration was suspicious enough to have been selected, these 4 outcomes can be summarized in a so-called confusion or error matrix that you can see here on the left. When the decision is made not to control, which is the majority of the cases, in order to ensure a smooth trade flow, there is always a risk to miss some irregular declarations. In the cases where control is performed, either a fraud was detected and we get a relevant control, or we unfortunately have slowed down the trade flow with an irrelevant one. So the obvious answer to the initial question is we want to select the irregular ones while leaving all the legitimate declarations go through. We make mistakes, of course. So the next question is, how do we measure how well the job was done? So let's try to measure the impact of our decisions with some classical KPIs. We can find in any standard statistical analysis. Often those will be used as well by technology providers. So first, we have the precision. That is the percentage of relevant selections on all selections we make. Unfortunately, this does not tell us anything about what we have missed. To try and solve that, we can use the sensitivity, which is the percentage of all frauds we succeed in finding. Yet this is something we can only estimate, since we do not really know the true status of all the declarations we didn't control. And say we could get this estimate, then we could also use the accuracy, which is the percentage of good decisions we make, selection or not. But if you remember the 2 important facts about the previous slide, accuracy is pointless for customs since customs data are in large proportions legitimate goods that we don't control. So this strong double imbalance between good and bad declaration will make the accuracy always be close to 1, even if not a single control is performed. So eventually, what we have to do to measure the efficiency of a selection model, the answer it really depends, because in the customs world, the risk can depend on many often incompatible factors with many different constraints. It will also lead to many possible approaches. As a quick illustration, let's compare two very different types of risk: financial risk on one side and safety and security risk on the other side. For financial risk, the goal is to optimize duties and taxes recovery. In other words, we want to have our money back, and therefore the largest amounts will have the largest impact. Worse, willing to fight each fraud would be a waste of resources and money because it will cost more than it will pay back. In this case, the precision, as defined previously, is often much more important than the sensitivity. However, if we look at safety and security, the story is quite different. What we want is to prevent hazardous material from reaching the public. In this case, each risk can have an equivalent impact, and missing one single fraud is potentially dangerous. That means that for safety and security, the sensitivity, that is the ability to catch all targets, is often more important than the precision. The conclusion of the comparison is that defining global, universal, quantitative metrics is a myth, even when these metrics are aligned with the customs and risk management strategies. So what we propose here is a first attempt in building a generic framework of analysis that focus on qualitative parameters that can be observed in customs data analytics use cases. It's a quite simple schematic with the intended objective of standing at the center. And for now, the 3 dimensions that have proven to be very important in our experience. A specific criteria will be looking at namely the data, the technical and the business expertise that we will cover in more detail in the next slides. The first advantage of this framework is that it can be applied to all sorts of results and all sorts of situations, independently of the level of development or readiness. And in such, what we lose in quantitative interpretation, with, for example, traditional KPIs, is gained in the ability to effectively compare different results and different contexts. The second advantage is that it provides an accurate analysis of the impact of the different investigated approaches, thanks to the multidimensional nature of the framework. This allows to highlight the specific strengths and weaknesses of a strategy and to eventually draw lessons learned and recommendations for future improvement. Sorry, slight problem. The first dimension that we chose to highlight is the data quality. We put it really at the base of the framework because we think that data is really the foundation on which everything else is developed and refined. Data must be reliable, structured, up-to-date, and integrated in order to be usable, relevant, and understood. It also should be handled with care, as the standards in terms of data protection and confidentiality keep getting stronger over time. And we also see an upcoming AI Act, for example, in Europe, covering many of the techniques related to data analysis, like machine learning, for example. In essence, what we mean here is that the data quality is precious because it impacts every step of the development process. The second dimension is the technical expertise. Customs have been rapidly shifting towards more digitalization, with more and more declarations and documents coming in an electronic form. Many of the procedures need to get automated because of that, but also because the flows keep increasing, especially in the e-commerce sector, where there has been a huge boom. In order to deal with that, customs need new sets of skills and resources. We need stronger IT infrastructures in order to manage data. We need data analytics capabilities in order to make sense of the data. And we need to be able to work in real-time automated processes in order to deal with the volumes. And we must also keep on our toes in order to adapt to an always evolving landscape. All in all, customs must do a lot of efforts to keep up with disruptive technologies at the risk of becoming less relevant or outdated. Last but not least, we have the customs expertise. Based on our experience, we noticed that the need for specific customs domain expertise in data-related projects is often underestimated. This is a particular domain as it is very complex and specific. There are many different types of customs transactions, many different regulations and competencies associated with it, and thus many different law enforcement strategies depending on the trade scenario. Also, it's a fast evolving business where trade reacts quite quickly to different measures taken by customs. Exploiting the customs business knowledge and expertise is the key in developing useful data analytics. So where we are in terms of the timing?
Jonathan, you've got time up till 10:55. So it's another, let's say, 55 minutes, 7 minutes.
Okay, good. Just checking to be sure. So in this case, let's give some practical content to this theoretical framework, because developing data analytics for risk assessment is our day job. We will look at the working example of how the implementation of a data analytics process fits inside our framework. Of course, it reflects on our experiences, but we don't say it has to be taken as absolute truth. I'll start with the management team defining an initial objective. Therefore, they formulate some requests, essentially based on business premises and expectations to the data analyst. A first bottleneck is a possible misalignment between what management expects from the technical staff and what is actually technically possible. The other way around, data analysts may not speak the customs language and therefore miss the purpose of some crucial constraints related to business. But the model will develop using state-of-the-art algorithm and quickly get some preliminary results and submit them to the business experts. However, blindly using super tools on cryptic data with no business knowledge is doomed to failure. Models will give some unexpected selections, maybe great results on paper, but when given into the hands of the business experts for an in-depth analysis, they may be explained by well-known features that could have easily been anticipated. Then business experts will give the feedback based on what they understand from the data analytics team, which once again the risk of misunderstanding from both sides during the process. And then we have a new loop, and again, until one day a model is good enough to be tested and implemented in real life. Controls are performed by a field officer that might not understand the purpose of the selection because it comes from some black box algorithm, making no sense to them. But analysts get more feedback along with more data, and the new selection can be reviewed and modified following the needs. We eventually have a succession of slow iterative loops that are time and resource consuming. So it's quite inefficient. Now, if we look at an ideal situation where all the identified problems and bottlenecks have been even partially solved. First, the management team would really sit at the center of the triangle, as they will have a complete view of the possibilities offered by the data and the technical expertise to fulfill at best the business objectives. As mentioned earlier, at Belgian Customs, data scientists are also trained customs officers. So we therefore have some good knowledge about the customs domain, which allows us to understand better the objective and anticipate the main features. We will therefore need advice and feedback from the business expert at a much later stage. This results into fewer, shorter loops, exchanges are facilitated, resources are used at their best, and the process is optimized. This can be visualized in our framework by everything nicely distributed around the center of the framework, everyone keeping his own profile and expertise, but with shorter distances to each other. As you might have grasped now, the application of the framework to a specific use case can be done in cycles of development, which in this case is a fourth dimension. While we need to start at a low level where the tasks are basic, generic, it progressively becomes more complex, refined, and specialized. This can be especially observed at the corners of the triangle where the dimensions meet. So you have the business analysis on the bottom left, the theoretical modeling on the top, and the data application on the bottom right. It is important to note that there is a high level of dependency between the different aspects of the framework. And in order to progress further, one needs to make sure that the work stays aligned with the main objective and that there is a balance between the level of development of the different corners. Otherwise, there will be a strong bottleneck in the area that is least developed and that will strongly impact the development. For example, if you try to push a new data source into your system, but your personnel has no understanding of it, and your system cannot be fully integrated with it, it will be almost useless to you.
2 minutes, Jonathan.
Yes, and I am concluding. So that is where we are with the framework. First, we'd like to see how generic and flexible this is. This has been developed with customs risk management in mind, but it might also be relevant in other customs-related situations, but also for trade. Second, we have really focused on the analysis of practical experiments and situation until now. But like we mentioned today, we think that can be used with a broader strategic view and a more high-level view. And finally, we can go also much further with regards to the core dimension. So where the focus is really on the objective and the strategy. For example, if you ask yourself the question, how to ensure the coordination between the dimension and their alignment with the objective, and what impacts the level of pull or the power of attraction of the chosen objective. Essentially, the more interesting the objective to the parties involved, the easier it will be to align everybody. And yeah, so what's the important takeaway here? There is a huge opportunity when it comes to data, but every opportunity comes at a cost. You need to have the right expertise, both on the custom side and the technical side, on top of the right data. And these three dimensions need to communicate efficiently with each other. Investing in robust processes is never a bad bet. And in order to better understand and evaluate your current situation or the choices that you want to make, an analysis framework such as this can be very useful to get a simple view out of a complex situation. So this is still developing, this is still research, but we will continue to update it in the future, and all inputs are welcome. And thank you very much for your attention.
Jonathan, thank you so much for this excellent framework, highlighting those three disciplines. And I'm quite sure that people are looking forward to discuss this with you further in the panel discussion. I think you said you won't be available in the panel discussion, so we can just answer a few questions in the chat room if there are any. We really appreciate that, and all the best, and sorry about the loss in the family. Thank you very much for sharing your knowledge with us.
My pleasure.
Ladies and gents, we're going to take a short break. After the break, we will have another two great presentations and also the panel discussion, questions and answers. So we're looking forward to that. So stay with us, and we'll see you in about 5 minutes time. So go and grab that cup of coffee. Thank you very much. All right, everybody, let's take up our seats and going to have the exciting second portion of our event. Hopefully you had a nice cup of coffee or something and you're still having it there. So our next presenter then, I've already introduced to you early on, Mr. Dan Garcia, Director of SIMS. Dan, thank you very much for working through the night to be with us. Dan is again going to talk to us about what is the potential benefit for big data in the world of customs as it relates to trade facilitation and trade security. Thank you very much, Dan.
My pleasure. All right. Let me get technology going here. This is a very, very interesting topic, and we're living in a very exciting time for international trade. I guess Dr. John Kelly at IBM would say we're living in a cognitive age, no longer in a computing age, but we've gone far beyond that. And as we've seen from the two prior presentations, we're very much in a cognitive age, and our borders need to catch up with the type of trade that is occurring all over the world. I've had the pleasure of working on very rudimentary projects that kind of were painful because they exposed a priority of things that needed to be done, even though we wanted to jump into the interesting ML and AI and secure ledger concepts. We realized that we really needed to keep our feet on the ground first before we looked to the cloud. And so I want to share a little bit of that and the perspective that we have on the border of the future and what happens when we start to take trade facilitation and trade security and supply chain and border management into a new realm of and sphere of influence. So what is the potential benefit of big data was the question in trade facilitation and trade security. So there I need to start with two things, and that is the concept of trade facilitation. If we were to look at trade facilitation, let's say from the WTFA definition, it's streamlining trade so as to affect an economic benefit. So that is definitely true. Believe it or not, all of us, whether we're carriers, forwarders, brokers, customs agents, consultants, we are all in the asset management business. That is what we're doing, whether it's a financial asset, a material asset in the term of inventory or cargo, or it's data. All of those things are assets, and they're crossing borders, sometimes via electron, sometimes physically. So when it comes to trade facilitation, there are metrics. The metrics could be in days. The metrics could be in reduction of documents. It could be measured in capital. So trade facilitation is a very, very important part of the financial concept called supply chain management. And the whole purpose is to mitigate duplicity and manual processes. As a matter of fact, I would venture to say that there are two omnimetrics for any type of supply chain from any vertical industry in the world, and they're called working capital investment rate and cash conversion time, and they are highly correlated to the metrics that I mentioned on this slide. In addition, we have facilitation constraints. We're all familiar with these. We have lack of human resources. We may have high clearance costs or transactions costs. Payment methods may not be adequate. Maybe we're still using paper or certain monetary constraints. We have increased volume. We have manual procedures. We have high administrative costs. Maybe duties and taxes are not harmonized. And when it comes to a level playing field, we have a whole emergent realm of trade that I'll get into in a moment. So there's definitely facilitation constraints. In addition, we have maybe VAT changes. For example, in Europe recently, we have historically lodged information that we're reusing, maybe not exploiting. We have to fight under declaration fraud of tax avoidance and VAT. We have lack of human resources, limited infrastructure. What are our clearance times? All of these constraints are still plaguing trade facilitation. Now, in addition, we have on the other side of this equation, trade security. So in trade security, back in 2001, when we were designing the very first, what became an AEO program, we made almost a very bad mistake. We were focusing on physical. It became clear to us that we really needed to concentrate on all the functional areas that are constantly moving in a supply chain and make those threat areas. And all the intermediaries and all the data and all the handoffs were opportunities to filter the supply chain. And if an enterprise were willing to share that information with us, their supply chain information, we knew that the byproduct of that would be security. Because trade facilitation, which is efficiency and effectiveness, the byproduct of that, moving assets physically quickly or virtually quickly, the byproduct of that is security. And I can prove it financially, mathematically to you. Won't do that now, separate course. But AEO is a bright opportunity. It is a harmonizing opportunity. It is the language of supply chain. It is the Rosetta Stone of international trade. So trusted traders, we have, thankfully, rules of engagement. We have Pillar 1, customs, Pillar 2, customs to trade, and defined ways to set up an AEO program. We have Pillar 3, which I think is still a huge opportunity that is not quite where it needs to be, with customs to other government agencies. And so we have numerous organizations that are improving this on a regular basis. WCO, UNCTAD, even UPU is involved with this. So what are the metrics when we talk about security? Well, believe it or not, when you have a loss in supply chain, let's say a theft or a damage or cross-contamination, it gets accounted for on line 2 of your income statement. Cost of goods sold. Another metric might be man minutes per attempt. If the asset is moving through the supply chain with limited delays, it's hard to touch it. It's hard to open it or put something in that supply chain. So man minutes per attempt are another potential metric for security. Loss, how much shrinkage are we having in the supply chain is another metric. What is our incursion rate? These are all trade security metrics that are very important. But remember, every functional area that happens, buying, making, moving, storing, that happens in every supply chain every day across the world are opportunities to filter a supply chain as well. Filter it in financial flow, material flow, and information flow. So what is the DNA of AEO? I'm going to kind of rehash this briefly because I can't say this enough. It's supply chain driven. It focuses the threat areas around the functional areas that exist in every supply chain. It's not something new. And it's 21 years old. It's an opportunity for a company to assess themselves for optimization, and the byproduct will be security. That's what it's all about. And it is definitely a collaborative approach, not only in their vertical industry or in their vertical supply chain, but across that, with other agencies, with customs and other entities. And there are always inherently mutual benefits because the supply chain touches all of those entities. The other thing that I want to reiterate is the perspective of AEO that gets lost is AEO is designed to give entities an opportunity for benefits, but through protecting, preventing, detecting, disrupting, adapting, and promoting risk mitigation strategies. So that is very important. So now emerging trends. When we're talking about trade facilitation and trade security, what else is plaguing our ability to do that optimally? The problem is there is a whole emergent trend in terms of being able to sell and trade on places like Facebook Marketplace. What happens there is now many can trade with many. Picture 2 billion people that are on Facebook now being able to trade with each other. What a dynamic network that is. And we're no longer really using buy, hold, sell strategies in supply chain. We're using sell, source, ship strategies where I sell the product before I even ship it, all right? So it's not a store concept anymore, it's virtual. So social network commerce has become huge. I can put in my feed a desired product, a desired thing, and all of a sudden it'll geolocate it. It'll tell me the price and I can click it and buy it. I can even pay with SMS or crypto. That is totally different. So these emerging trends are increasing velocity and complexity and drowning us at the border when it comes to targeting risk. Take Metcalfe's law. Metcalfe's law says that if there's one person talking to one person, that's one network. But then it quickly expands. So 2 billion people trading many to many, that's going to be hard to manage. The benefit is that Moore's law tells us that technology is going to keep up at pace, and it's going to double in the ability to manage all this complexity over a specific amount of time. So we do have technology. We do have the ability to kind of keep up pace, but we have to align it with all this social commerce, the consumer expectation, which is now very, very customized with the ability to order one product, one piece, as opposed to economic order quantities. We have the ability to have the market and feed algorithms. We have different payment abilities, but we must be cognizant that B2B is still around. Those are those 40-foot containers that you see traveling around the world in trucks and trains. B2C, similarly, that same supply chain, but we better be cognitive that there's a whole new trend of consumer to consumer supply chains that are hard to target, that are fast, and there are many to many that are trading, and many more will be trading. So e-commerce estimates are 4 trillion, 5 trillion USDs, and it's already very pervasive around the world in terms of value. COVID only helped to make this accelerate. So the e-commerce challenge that we have is that we are limited in terms of manpower, limited in terms of port infrastructure. All of this is making it harder and harder for us to keep up at a border and target risk. So what does this mean? We've got to keep up. We've got to keep up with all these myriad of things that are coming now in small parcel and packages, dangerous opioids, intellectual property rights from copied products, counterfeit goods, for example. All of these dangerous products are now coming. And we have these challenges across borders of de minimis value. How are our treasuries of our respective countries going to keep up when we're shipping economic order quantities of one at a de minimis value? So e-commerce is very, very tough, and we have to have a solution for it. So let's take a second here. What is big data then? Big data is basically all of these things that we have, all of these sensors and now electronic sensors, RFID, Bluetooth technology, IoT sensors, smart camera technologies, NII technologies, radiation portal monitors, all this technology that is feeding us vast amounts of data. It has to turn somehow into information. And so there are 3 components of it, and that's volume, velocity, and variability. And when we harmonize this and use it in a focused manner, we can do one thing, and that is make better decisions. And that is what big data is about. So it enables us, big data, if aligned, and we look at the concept of supply chain and the handoffs and trade facilitation and trade security, it enables us to handle more information, more and faster, and any type of information. Okay, that's enough. Mind blown. How do we get our arms around this? Let's see if we can bring this down to earth. The good old days. I kind of miss the good old days. I liked the slower pace of the good old days. I'm sure you guys kind of sometimes miss it as well. But if you look at that little old advertisement on the right-hand side, everything that you see on that page can now be done on here. Everything that used to be sold in that electronics store is now done with one of these devices. In the old days, we had newspapers and books and radio and TV, and we used to go to a video store to rent videos. We would rent DVDs, and then we'd get in trouble for not returning them on time. We'd get a fee for that. And then came Netflix, and now it's on demand. We used to have libraries and rent books. Now you can read them on your phone. Everything has been replaced by a new digital world that is on your fingertips, and it is ubiquitous, be it Android, be it Apple, be it whatever operating system it is, right? So our traditional approach to trade facilitation and trade security looked pretty familiar, and it kind of worked for a while, but it's not going to cut the mustard going forward. Going forward, we have to approach things and be able to manage by exception. And in order to manage by exception and be able to react quickly and not have to focus on trusted traders and trusted supply chains, we're going to have to be able to detect anomalies. And in order to do that, we're going to have an immutable environment. So what does that look like? We have to go from a trust model to a truth model. What does that look like? So a systems approach to something like that, you have to be able to take all this data in real time and put it in a consensus order and validate the provenance of it and whether it's still truth or has it changed. Because if we're not able to detect an anomaly in the financial material or information world, we do not have actionable intelligence. And we're going to have to deal with every single trusted trader and everything that they're shipping. We need to remove the trusted traders and everything that they're shipping away from our targeting model, in essence or virtually, in such a way that we don't have to look at them. We only need to look at the ones that are anomalous. So the system has to be consensus, has to be proven, has to be truth. And any change in any part of the supply chain, be it a bill of lading, be it a seal has been tampered with on the physical flow, all of those are anomalies that we need to use to have an exceptions-based approach. So the system needs to be designed that way. The system has to be also able to do scalability. So a private public ledger technology that maybe is off architecture makes more sense. The processes have to be able to handle fast and fair ordering with timestamping in an immutable manner. We have to have the utmost security, let's say asynchronous Byzantine fault tolerance, for example, so that we can survive multiple attacks. We have to be able to handle transactions, thousands of them, with a short amount of time, because if we don't, then we're going to have a lot of delays, and we can't have delays at a border. Sometimes if we use certain immutable technologies like blockchain, we're going to have high gas costs because there's too much proof of work that is going on. We can't have that amount of proof of work. So whatever system we decide to put in the middle of our custom systems to facilitate trade and target security, they can't be just traditional blockchain systems. And anomaly detection has to be pervasive across these systems. All of these areas need to be part of that, let's call it middleware system, so that we can verify timestamps, have tamper evident and tamper proof across all three flows, have real-time analysis, real-time granular auditing of anything by a system instead of a person, have high security standards, and ultimate access control standards. Key anomaly detection, what is the benefit? Well, I'll give you an example. I know of cases where an entity, bad guys, have changed the commodity code from one country to another, let's say processed oil into, let's say gasoline, and there's a higher duty and tariff rate, and they change it once it gets to the country of destination to cooking oil, to pay less duties and to pocket that money. Or what about a change of destination for nefarious reasons? Let's say your product was supposed to go to a specific port and it normally goes to a specific port, and all of a sudden it goes to a different port, so that a crime ring could then steal the product, for example. Or another classic example is being able to open 99% of the seals that are on the market today. Bolt seals and cable seals can be opened in less than 5 seconds without you even knowing that they've been opened. And the bad news is they can be reclosed again. And if we can't detect that anomaly, then how are we going to know something's bad in the system? There are numerous examples of the need to be able to detect anomalies in all 3 flows of the supply chain. So what would a systems architecture like that look like? With all these players in the supply chain and all these systems in the supply chain and all this data in the system, this is what an architecture would look like in a consensus network. Encrypted message going to a public mainnet, and then having mirror nodes, and then the up or down. Is this data good? Has it changed? Or is there an anomaly? In real time is happening behind the scenes in an immutable environment in a consensus network, and not interfering at all with the on architecture systems of one customs authority or another customs authority. It could be a middle cloud architecture. So this immutable system, what it enables is trust versus truth, the customs inbound and the customs outbound, full visibility, but it gives us from purchase order to proof of delivery, provenance, all the way to reconciled data, finance, and information. And all of those are very important in the future. If we do not have this immutable environment, we're not going to be able to keep up pace with what's happening. So what is the so what? If we want volume and velocity across a border, we need truth. In order to have truth, we have to have systems that enable that volume, velocity, and variability to keep up with even e-commerce. Now, to be able to automate all this, we have to have machine learning and eventually an adult version of those machine learning results, and have no longer an adolescent, but an adult AI model. And in order to do that, we have to be learning practically what's called policy network rules. The system has to be learning anomalies on a regular basis. Then we have to have what's called a value network. What is the probability of something occurring in the supply chain? What is the probability of when a container sits for a day at a port that somebody's going to open and close a seal and put something in or take something out if we give them that many man minutes per attempt? Then the system also has to learn how to search for variations of anomalies, like some of the ones that I mentioned. And there are a whole library of anomalies. As a matter of fact, I can't say due to confidentiality, but there's a finite number of anomaly types in all of international trade, and our systems need to align with those variations. So,
2 minutes. 2 minutes.
yes, Harry, you have impeccable timing. This is my last slide. So, benefits of big data, and remember, big data, all it is volume, velocity, and variability of information, but harmonized into a laser-focused approach. And so the system that we're looking for, and the good news, it exists, and other enhancements are coming. What all of this is going to do for us is it's going to strengthen our AEOs, right? Strengthen our model of AEO, which I think is the future of trade, and trusted traders should get all the benefits in the world that we can think up. We should promote tamper evidence in the supply chain because it's the only thing that's going to save us. We're going to be able to enhance Safe Pillar 2. We're going to be able to make finally a good impact with OGAs in Pillar 3. We're going to be able to facilitate trusted supply chains. Advanced trade data elements will be a prerequisite, but a pre-benefit for green lanes. An export will be an immediate clearance at import. We'll be able to have interoperability and connected customs and connected trade with immutability. And all of this will give us from purchase order to proof of delivery, scalability, And what that does is it takes waste out of the supply chain. And like I said, I can prove it mathematically with the 2 metrics that I gave you in the beginning, that this is the future and it's possible. And everything that you heard my colleagues speak about and that you're hearing about, once integrated, is going to make it possible. That's it, Harry. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dan. This emerging trends is so important. And as you're talking about big data, becoming information and enabling people to take better decisions, and the key system benefits are so important. So thank you very much for sharing this with us. And I'm quite sure they're looking forward to talk to you in the panel discussion. Thank you, Dan.
My pleasure.
Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Harry.
Right, ladies and gents, we've been in the Americas, we've been in Europe and Belgium, and now we're moving to China. And we have somebody presenting from China, from Huawei, and that is John Wang. And quickly, a little bit more information about John Wang. He's a senior solution architect, currently engaged in public cloud solutions, 12 plus years in public cloud, private cloud, server virtualization, R&D, and solution. He's currently senior solution architect in Huawei Cloud Technology, Huawei Cloud Computing Technology, and is responsible for public cloud internet industry solutions, including logistics industry solutions and travel industry solutions. So John is going to talk to us about the best practices of Huawei Cloud Logistics Solution. Thank you very much, John. We appreciate your time.
Hello, can you see my screen?
Yes, you can just go to slide mode.
Okay.
Thank you. That's perfect.
Hello, everyone. I'm John from Huawei Cloud Solution Department. It's my pleasure to share best practice of Huawei Cloud Logistics Solution. From the logistics solution overview, we can say logistics can be divided into domestic logistics and cross-border logistics. Domestic logistics covered express service, warehouse service, and transportation service. Cross-border logistics include import logistics and export logistics. Export logistics covered postal service, international express service, cross-border supply line, and overseas warehouse. Huawei Cloud Logistics Solution focus on domestic express service, cross-border supply line, and overseas warehouse. Then I will introduce the logistics solution in the 3 services. First, let's come to the first service in detail, domestic express service. In 2021, China's domestic express business volumes had more than 100 billion orders per year, of which over 8% of the business are from e-commerce platform. The world domestic express service consists of 3 phases: package pickup, transportation, and package delivery. As you know, more than 80% of the express service come from e-commerce platform. E-commerce platform are in the leading position. Then the e-commerce platform obtains express order number by invoking the APIs of the express systems and get a 3-sigma code. Then e-commerce platform print express waybill and ask express companies to pick up package. However, the express companies only functions as a transportation route. Then there is a big data gap between express companies and the e-commerce platform because express companies can't get sender and receive information from e-commerce platform. Express companies just use the scan to read 3-sigma code to distribute package and use the receipt address planned on the expressway beer to deliver the package. The big data gap makes the express companies very hard to develop the other end service. The Huawei Cloud OCR solution helps express companies to fill the data gap. Take Yunda Express companies as an example. Traditionally, Yunda Express used TicketPro to identify 3-segment code and distribute package. In 2018, Yunda Express company used Huawei Cloud Express Waybill OCR solution. It helps identify 3-segment code to support package distribute. What's more, it helps connect the information from Express Waybill. Let's look at the Huawei Cloud Express Waybill OCR solution detail. Huawei Cloud Models trains the Waybill OCR model based on a large number of Express Waybill photos. The detailed application process is as follows. First, when packages are on the package short line, use the camera to take Express Waybill photos. And second, the photo slide application slide Waybill photos. And third, the photos slide application sends the slide photo to PC. Fourth, PC sends the slide photos to the photos management service. The fifth, the photo management server invoked OCR service. And the sixth, the OCR service returns the result to the photos management service. And the last, the photo management server sends the result to the Express application service assistance, include 3-segment code and other information from Express Waybill. And the 3-segment code are used for package distribute, and other information will send the Express systems. During the package transportation process, packages are loaded and unloaded for many times. Express company face the package damage risks and even surface from customs claims. Take the Deban Logistics as an example. In China, Deban runs the large-size package express business and compensates as much as 400 billion Chinese yuan per year store package damage. In 2018, Deban Logistics used Huawei Cloud Wavelength Shorting Identification solution. It helps reduce the package damage rate by more than 15%. This solution uses the virtual AI technology to identify whether packets are wavelength short or not. Let's look at the Huawei Cloud wavelength sorting identify solution detail. 1. Huawei Cloud models trains the AI model of wavelength sorting identified based on a large amount of videos, and release the AI model to the video analysis application. Second, use Huawei function graph service to compute event functions. The event function is in JSON format. The event function sets a rule to enable the video analysis application in invoke video files from OBS. The detailed application process is as followed. First, use cameras to load package, loading and unloading videos. Each camera collects the loading and unloading of only one LoRa in time segment. Second, use Huawei Cloud VIS service to access the connect video file and store the video file in OBS. And third, the video analysis application invoke video files from OBS based on the functions rule, complete by function graph. Then the video analysis application analysis sorting behaviors and the whether the variant sorting is happened. The video analysis application writing the identify variant sorting behaviors into the OBS and enter the videos file and name the video file based on rule. And the fifth, after a video file is written to OBS, the function graph function is told. The function graph function passes the video file name, obtains even information about variant sorting behavior. And the sixth, event information is reported to the customer's application system through the DIS systems or DIS channels. And the seventh, customer can create very short events through the application systems. And last, customer can directly invoke the video file of variant sorting through the application systems. Let's come to the scenarios of cross-border service line and overseas warehouse. We use cross-border logistics companies as an example. This cross-border logistics companies runs cross-border express and cross-border logistics business. Cross-border express business is built on the basis of sales owner, express operation country, include Chinese mainland, some countries of the East Asia, North Africa, Middle East, and Latin America. The cross-border logistics business mainly include cross-border express line and overseas warehouse business. As mentioned earlier, 18% of the domestic express business comes from e-commerce platform in China. And the same, most of the cross-border logistics also come from cross-border e-commerce platform in China. More and more cross-border sellers will choose cross-border supply line or overseas warehouse. In the cross-border supply line model, the seller need to deliver the good one by one, need to transport package cross-border one by one. After the package arrives the destination country, package were delivered by the express companies and the destination country. In the overseas warehouse model, overseas warehouse companies list or building warehouse in key foreign country and provide warehouse listing, goods sorting, package, and local delivered service for cross-border e-commerce sellers. If the e-commerce sellers choose the overseas warehouse model, sellers should deliver goods to overseas warehouse in advance and remote manage goods through the warehouse management systems. In the cross-border supply service, have transportation requirement on goods with bartering. The kind of good should be supply transport, and the international transportation cost is higher than normal good. Therefore, cross-border supply provider should classify package into normal package or bartering package. Generally, X-ray security machine and the security person are required to check and classify package. But a long time of work by a security person can learn to force check and miss check for more and more. In China, the largest cross-border specialized service provider, Yuntu Logistics partners with Huawei Cloud last year to develop the pathway interface solution. Right now, based on a large number of photos from X-ray security machine, models trains the AI model and the error detection rate has reduced to less than 6%, and the missing detection rate has reduced to less than 1.5%. As a cloud service provider, Huawei Cloud not only provides PaaS and AI service, but also to provide end-to-end logistics solution together with ecosystem partners. For example, in cross-border logistics solution, Huawei Cloud logistics partner Mista provide order management systems, and Mista GREA and Flux provide warehouse management systems. Mista GREA provide transportation management systems. And last, if you have any logistics requirement, welcome to connect with Huawei Cloud team. Thank you.
John, thank you very much for this impressive technology and sharing with us. We really appreciate that. Clearly, you guys done lots of work in research and development to make sure that you cover the full spectrum, and it was very interesting, John. So thank you very much for that. We really appreciate that, and I'm quite sure they will pose some questions for you guys. I've just said in the chat room that people should post questions for Huawei, and they can send it to myself, and I will forward it to you guys at Huawei. Thank you very much, guys. Yeah, Huawei said that they won't participate in the panel discussion that's going to follow right now. And you guys are welcome to post questions to Harry or to myself or info@transportseek.com, and we will make sure that the questions are forwarded to Huawei and they will answer you directly. So thank you very much, Huawei, for your support. We really appreciate that. So ladies and gents, let's now go to our questions and answers. We still have some of our presenters available, so if we can kindly have Dan Garcia, Patrick Dion, to just see those two, and Patrick, those two. So it's Dan and Patrick. If you can kindly switch on your cameras and unmute yourselves, I'll put you guys in the panel here, and so that we can have a panel discussion. Let's see. So they've got two of our panelists, and ladies and gents, you're welcome to raise your hands. You can go to the excuse me, to the bottom of your screen, and you can select the reactions. You can raise your hand, or you can unmute yourself. I'll pick it up here in the participants box, and I will recognize you, and then you can ask your question to our panelists. So Raditao, seems that you would like to ask a question. You're welcome to ask your question, Raditao. Seems we've got all. Raditao, you want to ask a question? Seems to me there is a problem there. All right, what the people are thinking, I would like to maybe throw something in here. You know, we've been referring a lot about big data and so on. and it's extremely interesting. So we're obviously talking a lot about, and that's now becoming reality with us. Gwen, I'll give you opportunity just now. And that is the fifth industrial revolution. That's where a lot of things getting personalized. You know, Danny gave us the example of Siri. I must be careful what I'm saying here. I might want something this side using the word Siri. Yeah, so the fifth industrial revolution, when things really get really personalized, you know, in terms of artificial intelligence building up around us and with us and work and play and all over, and the impact that will have in our worlds and especially in trade facilitation and so on. I don't know if you guys maybe want to say a few words about the fifth industrial revolution and what impact that will have on our lives in the future, maybe.
I think in terms of the revolution that we're experiencing with sensors and processing power that we have, everything's going to get faster and easier and more ubiquitous, and it's going to be 24 hours as opposed to a 9 to 5 type of situation. So we have to be able to scale, and we have to be able to filter better what is urgent, what might just be a priority, and what can we get to, and what must we defer. So that I think is what is happening right now globally, with the computing power that we all have, and the ability to communicate across borders and trade across borders from our kitchen. So that frenetic pace is not going to slow down.
Patrick, I don't know whether you want to say something about the fifth industrial revolution.
Thank you, Harry. From the customs perspective, what usually happens is this continuous appraisal of the environment in which we operate. We have a service to deliver. Customs exists primarily because there is international trade, and if you can check, then all other attributes get on board. So the primary concern is to also look at the relevance that stakeholders in this space have attached to this revolution, and then we need to always respond. That is why the WCO is the organization to lead, give guidance, develop all the tools and the instruments, forge partnerships with the appropriate stakeholders and let me say the technicians, to ensure that we are able to deliver appropriate service. So this is where I can really look at it, scratching the surface, and I will not dare to go into any complexities as well. Thank you.
Patrick, you're being humble. What Patrick is really saying is the hardest task at hand is to harmonize the totality of all this and the role that the WCO is playing in this entire complex model at this frenetic pace is harmonization. They're bringing rules of the game, harmonization, even with emerging things that are coming fast. They're figuring out how to reach and say, okay, well, that's where this fits here. And that harmonization, we can't do any of this. We can't speak a common international trade language without that harmonization. So Patrick is being very humble, but I'm going to give him an hoorah on my side if it's okay. So
thank you, Dan. You couldn't have said it better. I mean, no, that's really the case, honestly. It's a very difficult task, but fortunately, all stakeholders are very much on board and so interested in getting good results from this.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much. Gwen, you also posted something in the chat room earlier on, but now you're welcome to ask your question. Thank you, Gwen.
Thank you very much indeed, and thank you for a fascinating session. My background, my interest is trade access or market access. And one of the areas of standardization right now is with global coding. So that's just acknowledging that I'm aware of that. My question is, with all of the trade disruption going on in the global trade scene, South Africa's reliance on exports of, for instance, fresh produce, if I can use fruit as an example, and the disruption that is associated with that. One of the aspects is if we can't export, we get a flood in the local market, which impacts on our smallholder farmers. We also are very strongly aware and excited by the opportunities of the African Continental Free Trade Area. So if we are looking at standardization, if we are looking at custom single window, if we are looking at digitization, to what extent and how do we approach that from an African continental point of view? Are we aware of that? And I'm saying we in a sort of generic sense. But are we up, or are we going to get caught out by not even being able to trade between the various African countries? Thank you.
Thank you, Gwen.
Thank you, Gwen. Maybe I might want to take this up first. You know, if you take the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement itself, I think what is happening is that the AU has also recognized the emergence of e-commerce, for example, and has gone ahead to even develop a third protocol that will look at e-commerce. In that regard, they recognize the importance of this, let me say, third force, talking in the context of the protocols. But it will now call for the appropriate regulatory frameworks that are already being propagated globally to be adopted at the continental level as well. What it means is that the African stakeholders, including customs, trade, must also see how to scale up this whole these tools and integrate them in that space. And there's no time to waste. There's no excuse to say, and I'm an African, no time to say we are developing at a slow pace, because the pace at which e-commerce is moving is tremendous. It will only allow wider market access for the free trade area, but it needs in measure adequate response also. What it means is that the customs part, where you will be dealing with automation and digitization and so forth, should enable that access to information, paperless flow of treatment of consignments, and then also not to lose sight of the fact that there are people who basically exist in informal areas, and we must find a way to bring them on board and never to leave out the section of traders in this area, because definitely the pace at which e-commerce is moving should be accelerated with regard to the implementation on the continent. Not everybody will be able to catch up, but they should not be left behind. It calls for a lot of collaboration between government, customs, trade, and experts to really see to the appropriate investments, opportunities that exist in order to create that conducive environment. So there's a whole lot that your question actually touches on and needs to be answered, or a lot of work that needs to be done in that space as well. But I really appreciate what you're saying, that it poses a risk, especially for export-led countries, for example, if you cannot, find space within the continent itself. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick.
Gwen, I appreciate the question. And from a supply chain standpoint, we're always looking at constraint management, right? And so we're always looking at time, quality, and cost. And so if, let's say, a agricultural product is delayed, what is happening, or if we're opening and closing that container too much and there's temperature excursions, what we're doing in any case is we're delaying that product. And so its viable market price anywhere in the world is diminishing the more times we're handling, the more times we're inspecting. And so there again, at origin, especially for classically perishable product, not only economically perishable, I found out the hard way doing a pilot program for the past 4 years in Peru for the agricultural industry. How do we give velocity to this with unimpeded filters, a green lane at export to perishable product? So we picked the agricultural industry because it's the most ubiquitous in the world and it's the most seemingly low tech. However, it's the most essential throughout the world. And so what we learned is that we needed to implement real critical steps to feed customs what they needed to see so that they would have the certainty that there was nothing in this container being exported other than what was said to be in there. And so we implemented photographic evidence at origin of the 7-point container inspection that is mandated in the Safe Protocol Standards Pillar 2 of AEO. We did, we searched far and wide for a mechanical, highly accessible cable seal with a 2D barcode with a tracking system so that we could see that this seal could not be opened and closed without it being destroyed. That is the definition of a seal. We forced photographic evidence at origin that the seal was attached properly to the correct container, geotime stamped with user authorization. Then that container that seal had to be scanned at origin, and when it got to the port, it was scanned again. We could then take timestamps to see whether it was on the road longer than it should be. Then if any NII photography or NII imagery was done or any documents needed to be attached, they could be attached to the system and they would always be attached to that simple mechanical seal via that 2D barcode. And the supercomputer that was used, Android and Apple, was this. That's all that was used. But what that enabled, that ecosystem, it enabled customs to have all the intelligence, the provenance of the product, the people that were involved, the specific seal that was manufactured for that specific use by that specific company for that specific origin. And all that together gave us truth, which is what I was trying to get at in my presentation. With truth, we can give velocity to any one of those containers. We don't want to see them. We want to get them out of the way. And what does that do to the viable life cycle of that produce? It commands a higher price for a longer amount of time on the global market. And that is just with agriculture. Picture now a product that has a super short life cycle like a semiconductor. That is what we're getting at. So I appreciate that question. I think it's a great question.
That is super, and thank you. If I can add 2 very brief comments on that. One of the challenges, and it comes down to monitoring the cold chain, is that some markets will only accept transfer of the product if there is proof that the cold chain has not been broken. So if we come to the challenges of exporting to China or exporting to America, that becomes a logistics challenge if there's any issue. So that needs to be monitored. The other consideration, this goes back to Huawei, is that I'm old school, if you like. I'm certainly not up with all the latest technology. If I get a new cell phone, my aim is to use it in the way I have used the last 5 cell phones or handhelds. We need driver's licenses. We already, if we look at accurate data from ground level, we can have youngsters in rural areas with pilot's licenses for drones. They do not need to set up the data flow. They do not need to handle or even know what data that drone is collecting, and they do not need to manage the streaming of that data to a particular entity and database, whatever. We need to consider supporting those sorts of issues in order to go back to ground level. If we look at the EU Green Deal and all of that, we are forcing the data level to pre-packaging, pre-processing to ground level, and we need to enable people in local communities. We simply do not have enough people to do a top-down, and there was a very valid point saying, understand your starting point in the ecosystem. So just leaving thoughts maybe for future discussion. Thank you very much, Harry, and thank you, Dan, and thank you very much, Patrick.
Thank you, Gwen. Really appreciate it.
Gwen, if I could make a comment to that, because it's a very good point. The good news is there's some technology that allows one to manage by exception, so we don't have to have personal interface. A minor example of that, I'll give you two examples. A minor example of that would be, let's say you have to patrol a large area like a port. Well, nowadays you can launch the route of an autonomous drone, and it could shoot LiDAR, infrared, and you could cordon off zones where there should never be a person between these certain hours, and the drone will go and report that and then report the anomaly if there is one, right? All by exception. When it comes to global trade, we've always been limited by, believe it or not, battery power. So all these smart containers that we talked about back in 2003, back in 2002, the smart container, right? Where is it? The good news is this year, you're going to see that for the first time. Now, because RFID really wasn't successful, it required infrastructure for interrogating a seal or carrying a battery pack on a container. Finally, this year in summer, you will see for the first time a ability to connect a device onto any maritime container, any truck, and the battery won't be an issue. You won't even need a reverse supply chain. It'll last longer because of LTE-M technology and how little power it requires. You will have infrared sensors, CO2 sensors for human trafficking, cold chain sensors, accelerometers, all in one fixed asset on a container that lasts longer than the seal. But it took this long because the power was the issue. The reverse costly supply chain, which is 10 times more expensive, you would have to take the seal off, rebolt it. You would lose the seal, it would get stolen. That's gone. And with LTE-M technology now and bi-directional communication, that is from the past. We will have a circular economy that with this seal that you will not have to worry about that anymore. And that's very, very exciting.
Super. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. I see Marcel's got a question here for Dan. How has the data sharing pilot at Peru Customs improved trade facilitation and trade security?
So the Peru, that was a program that was developed by Sunat in Peru, and they were very interested in smart seals 5 years ago. The problem was those smart seals, although they were interesting, they had two deficiencies. They could be opened and closed with no evidence of tampering. And the RFID technology was such that it could only communicate 15 meters. And the seal would be bouncing around real world on a truck or on a container. And the antennas would have to have a certain polarized angle of attack to interrogate that seal. So you'd get a lot of false positives. So we eliminated that conversation and we just went to a mechanical solution, and we just did simple constraint management. What are we trying to achieve? Okay, we got to get tamper evidence. So we looked for a tamper evidence solution, tested it in a lab. Then we said, well, how do we communicate with this thing? Well, everybody has a phone. Let's use a simple barcode on a unique seal. So those simple constraint management techniques enable us to build a very secure platform in Peru for these AEOs that were made prior to the pilot in the agricultural industry. And Sunat could then see every container at origin, what was happening, and they would get photographic evidence before the doors were closed of the product. They would see the doors closed with the seal on it. They would see the seal up close. So there was no way to cheat the system. It was filter upon filter upon filter. Then the container, when it got to, let's say, the Port of Callao from Pisco, let's say, they could interrogate the barcode on the seal, and the customs official with the app, mobile app, can click the history button, can see the images, can see the origin times, the origin location, all via the power of something that's already in their hand. And so what it did is it made everything very, very easy to manage by exception. And anything that was an anomaly in terms of time, geo, or let's say a picture of a container, they would immediately go to secondary and be debanned, or they would get NII scanned. And Sunat was very clever. They started uploading the NII scans to the seal system so that any destination country that wanted to participate with them could scan the seal at destination and see all that histogram and all that evidence. And so that was very clever on their part. And they've been doing a good job. This summer, they're going to start testing electronic versions of seals that do not require human intervention for scanning. So that was a very interesting pilot project that they did. Hope that answers your question.
Thanks, Dan. That was very insightful. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Dan, and Marcel. Susan Holmes is asking you, is the smart device referred to part of SIM's product range? Sorry, Dan, can you hear me?
Sorry, it broke up there, Harry.
Yes, Susan Holmes is asking, is the smart device referred to part of the SIM's product range?
So our role has always been, we're a supply chain analysis company. When 9/11 happened, we intersected with US Customs, and then we were hired to develop CTPAT AEO with CBP. And we were hired to write the job description for what became the supply chain security specialist. So we're a supply chain analysis company. Anything that reduces speed or adds complexity or is a constraint is what we try and circumvent or eliminate. So long-winded answer for a question that you're asking. In the case of security for international trade, our job was to seek out all technologies that would work, but work first in an analog way, that they don't require anything special, right? That they can be used ubiquitously by anybody in any country for any vertical industry, especially rudimentary industries like agriculture. So we sought out the market for any type of cable, bolt seal, mechanical. And although everything is based on ISO 17712-2013, I hate to admit in public forum that 99% of those seals, although they're ISO 17712, they ignore clause 6. Clause 6 says that they must be tamper evident. But the bad news is there are 6 methodologies to attack seals that you can attack a seal, open and close it with no evidence. And that is another course that we can do at some time. However, what we looked for was a seal that could not be attacked by any of the known methodologies without being destroyed. And so, although we don't sell the seals, we don't care about the seals, through these pilot projects, we really learned through the School of Hard Knocks what works and what doesn't work. And our number one priority is a doomsday scenario. When an explosive device goes off at a land border or a seaport, what's next? What do we do immediately? And how well prepared are we to do that? So for us, supply chain constraints and how we attack them and how we approach them is number one priority. And so although we don't make the seals, we don't sell them, our number one priority is to find the constraint and the approach. And in this case, we learned a lot that we never knew about seal technology. And through these pilot projects with Sunat and some of the rail projects that we're doing for drug interdiction in Mexico, we learned a lot about custodial control in a superior way and tamper evidence, which I think is the seedling and the basis for AEO, and AEO is the basis for all future benefits in an immutable supply chain.
Thank you, Dan. Ladies and gents, it seemed to me everybody is comfortable, so I'm going to ask our two panelists here for some closing comments. Maybe we can start with Patrick, and when Patrick is done, then Dan, some closing comments from you guys.
Thank you, Harry. I can only say thank you to the organizers and the co-presenters, as well as the audience. It's been a very insightful session for me as well. And but what I can say and gather from the thoughts that have been shared is that there's a lot of concerted effort that is required in taking things to the next step in the area of digital transformation. I will scale down from the high-level strategic level efforts that have been done at the level of WCO and customs to the level of project implementation, for example, where we are very much involved in delivering these standards and to achieve specific objectives, and say that it requires more than what we are doing to step out of the bounds where, especially for WCO, traditionally we would be providing soft technical assistance and capacity building support and venturing with trade into areas where they have better capacity and scope in order to bring real results to customs administrations, because there's a huge mandate on our part to deliver and bring to the satisfaction of the business community for speedy clearance and then security as well. So I'll just wrap it up here and say thank you very much for this opportunity once again. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Patrick. Much appreciated for your time sharing knowledge with us. Dan, some closing comments.
Yeah, the role of customs has always been trade facilitation and trade security. I can tell you, if we were to go to one of our southern border ports of entry here in the United States, if U.S. Customs has a backlog at one of the bridges and there's trucks piling up, they're going to hear a lot of things that they're not going to want to hear from the trade about trade facilitation. But at the same time, we can never forget why AEO started. And it's been a long time, but it's because someone attacked basically not just the United States, they attacked global trade, right? And we can't afford to not have a plan that has been well rehearsed to keep facilitating trade, which is a lifeline of all of our countries. So we need to be able to do that. So there's always going to be risks and there's going to be benefits, right? And that collaboration where those two intersect is where we are now with technology and opportunity. So I think when we look at the work that the WCO is doing, and I welcome you to actively participate in the WCO conferences, we can't do any of that without the harmonization that they're doing, okay? Without that harmonization, we're all doing sub-optimized projects, and no supply chain in the world is a sub-optimized supply chain. It is global. look at any vertical industry and you'll see it crosses the globe just to get from raw material to finished goods. So the role of trade facilitation, the role of trade security is inherent in supply chain management. And I welcome you to participate actively. You want benefits? Great, but there's also going to be requirements. And that's basically it.
Thank you very much, Dan. Thank you very much, Patrick. Ladies and gents, on behalf of the Transport Forum, we'd very much like to thank our panelists for an excellent presentations today. And clearly you guys done lots of research and sharing your knowledge with us is very much appreciated. So thank you very much, and a big hand to our panelists. And also thank you to the sponsors and to Global Trade Solution, who hosted us today, and Marcel also helping us to put together this program. And Marcel also agreed now to do the wrap up and close for us. So Marcel, thank you very much. Please close the event for us. Thank you very much.
No, thank you, Harry, and a special thanks to all the speakers. Literally, we've had them from all four corners of the globe today. It's really been an honor engaging with you and your passion for this topic and putting the time aside. I really do believe that the audience has benefited from your knowledge today. Dan Garcia, special thanks all the way from America, and Patrick Guion with your crazy, crazy schedule and adding such gravitas to the session today. Jonathan Mijet for, wow, those insights, just phenomenal what they're doing in Europe. And also our colleague from China, John Wangjian, thank you so much for adding just an extra twist to the morning session. And Harry, thank you for allowing these forums to let us knowledge share and have an opportunity to learn and grow, and for these topics that are quite thought-provoking. I think whoever was on the session today certainly has been left with some food for thought. I certainly have been, and I've been intimately involved, and I've learned even more today. So thanks again to everybody, and we wish you a wonderful day and look forward to seeing you at some of the future sessions. Thank you, Harry.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Marcel. Take care. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.